Well, welcome back, everybody. Nice to see you again. Not that I could see you, but you know what I mean. This is session 3 of our Thinking About God series, understanding human spirituality from a Christian perspective, the kind of stuff that we're trying to help your children understand at school, and things that we believe are absolutely essential for a healthy and wholesome life ahead of them. Now, last week we discussed the question of humanity. Who, what, why are human beings? Why do we matter to God? What's the big deal? And I hope you would have seen that in God's way of thinking, we are just so important to Him because He made us, because He wanted us, because He loves us, that our privilege is extraordinary, that we get to be part of His family, part of His eternal plans, and it's just mind-boggling that we should be called children of God. So I hope that was an encouragement to you that at the core of Christianity is not rules and regulations, but identity, who we really are as God's people. Now, this week is perhaps the pivotal moment because really everything that we believe, everything that we stand for as Christians rises and falls on one person. And that person is a historical figure, and now I'm speaking about Jesus. You may have heard him described as Jesus Christ or the Messiah Jesus. Christ is not a surname, by the way, it's just the Greek word for Messiah, the Savior, the Lord of humanity. We're going to discover that in Christian thinking, Jesus is absolutely central. Not because he was just a human being of extraordinary caliber. We're going to discover he was, yes, fully human, but also fully divine. In fact, it's our belief that Jesus is God in the flesh. Now, that can seem a little bit of an odd notion to someone. How can he be God and human at the same time? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on throughout the session. But we want you to know and be able to understand who, what, and why Jesus came to the earth. Because in understanding that, you will understand more fully the unfolding of God's purposes for all of us on this planet. And so we want to begin by, again, as usual, asking what you believe. Who do you say Jesus is? What do you think of him? Was he just a guy? Was he deluded? A bit of a religious loony? Was he a liar perhaps, a very clever charlatan who managed to convince everybody to believe in him? Or was he in fact who he claimed to be? They're really important questions. So we want to know what you think, how you would answer that question if someone were asking you, is Jesus God? Can we be sure of that? How can we know that Jesus is God? What evidence is there that Jesus really is who he claimed to be? So today is really centered all about Jesus, the central figure of Christianity. But here's something you may not know. One of the great apostles, the Apostle Paul, who wrote a lot of the New Testament, quite a prolific writer. The Apostle Paul, when he was discussing Jesus, and more specifically the life, death, and then resurrection of Jesus, he said this. He said to the church of his day, listen guys, if Jesus didn't actually rise from the dead, then we are to be pitied more than any other people on the planet because we've been duped. We are fools to believe in a dead man. Interesting, isn't it? He was absolutely convinced that Jesus had risen from the dead and proven himself to be who he claimed to be. So we're going to look at a little bit of that today. But first, as usual, I want to hear from you. And then your facilitator is going to discuss with you the topic of the person and the work, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, who we call the Christ, the Messiah. Have a wonderful conversation. I will see you next time.